We've seen two apparent attempts on former President Donald Trump's life, and we are hearing lots of hateful rhetoric in politics and threats of political violence. So are we as Americans getting too accustomed to all this?
You know, the political record in this country has gotten very heated. It's time to cool it down.
Republicans and Democrats are blaming each other for fueling the fire, but how much are we as Americans to blame for what's going on in politics? And what, if anything, can we do about it? Professor Randall Blazak is an expert on political extremism and hate crimes. His group, Cure PNW, is trying to find ways to de-escalate political violence, hopefully before it happens. Professor Blazak has been on this program before, so thank you for coming back to Eye on Northwest Politics.
Nice to be back, Ken.
What is Cure PNW and what are you trying to do?
Yeah, we were the recipient of a federal grant 2.5 years ago to look into community-based ways to de-escalate political violence. And this is in the wake of 2020 when we saw so much political conflict in the city of Portland. We saw the ramping up of just the way people were speaking about their political positions becoming more and more violent. We also saw increased threats, not just to elected officials, but to poll workers and people working on campaigns, and just the chat that's out there in our sort of social media circles, ramping up more around violence, including a belief or a kind of narrative that we're heading toward another civil war or second American Revolution, or something big that's going to happen. And so we were lucky enough to receive this grant to really work in the community to find ways of bringing the temperature down. And that's kind of the work that we've been doing.
Now, when you talk about bringing the temperature down, you recently put out a press release just a couple of days ago, as a matter of fact, saying that building community capacity is one way to prevent political violence. What do you mean by that?
Well, we've got this tension that's out there, and it's tension around specific issues. Sometimes it's around the federal government or LGBTQ rights, or these sort of flashpoints in communities. And we know that we're not as divided as we pretend to be. It seems like you're either on this side or on this side, and these two sides can never find common ground. When we go into communities and help them find sort of common elements that bind them together, things that bring people together, including people in faith communities and people within activist communities, to really find the connective tissue in the community where we can have these conversations about things without exploding and not sort of otherizing the other. And we're in this language of good and evil. My side is good and your side is evil. When we get together and we build sort of the strength that's already there within the community, a lot of that stuff fades away. And a lot of people who were normally screaming at each other, all of a sudden listening to each other and saying, hey, I recognize your position. I have a different one. Let's talk about it.
We hear extreme statements, extreme political statements coming from candidates these days. I'm thinking about, former President Trump and J.D. Vance talking about dogs and pets getting eaten in Ohio. But people react to those kind of statements. So what's your thoughts about that and whether we can do anything about it?
I have a lot of thoughts about that, especially as a pet owner. There is this really divisive political rhetoric that's out there, and it's just toxic, and it's just pulling people apart. But what we've seen in Springfield, in Ohio, is that community, including conservatives and liberals and Democrats and Republicans, kind of coming together and saying, wait, this is our community, and we have to live in it. And so when we tap into the sort of goodwill that's already there among people, it serves to block it out. The problem is the rhetoric speaks to the people on the margins, and the people on the margins are more likely to engage in violence. So we've seen the Proud Boys and the Ku Klux Klan show up in Springfield. We've seen it become a place where people are just sort of screaming at each other. And what we're trying to do is get to the middle, to get to the conversations, because the stuff on the outside can tip over into violence. We've seen it, and we've seen the potential that's there in places like Springfield. We've seen it here in Portland. And there is this great opportunity to have these kind of creative conversations. And we're doing this thing called credible messengers. So there are people in those communities that can help calm people down. They don't have to listen to a politician or a professor or a cop, but they might listen to a family member or somebody they work with saying, all right, I get where you're coming from, but let's think where that goes. Like, you're sort of going off the rails a little bit here. Let's think about what that might look like a year from now. And let's find a way to have a conversation that listens to what your grievances are, but responds in a non-violent way, where we can find this sort of commonality that we have.
We see a lot of this nationally,
Yeah.
but you're here in the Pacific Northwest. So what are you concerned about in terms of hate groups or hate speech here in the Pacific Northwest?
We have this conspiracy theory. You know, conspiracy theories have sort of become mainstream now, but we certainly have this conspiracy theory that's worked that the election is going to be stolen. That whoever wins, the election is going to be stolen, especially if one particular candidate loses, it's going to be stolen. And there has been a rhetoric around a response with violence, a belief that democracy doesn't work. Here's the proof that democracy doesn't work. We've seen these groups advertise for guns and bullets and also first aid kits for when they do get shot by the police because of this coming civil war. And so there is this underbelly or this undercurrent of this belief that the election is going to spark some type of violent response. And so we're really trying to get out in front of that and get as many people into communities as possible that can help those people move away, because that seems to be the local threat. The Pacific Northwest has a history of extremism and extremist groups, including white supremacist groups, but also groups on the left. And we are watching this rhetoric ramp up. And the hope is that the people in the middle will be able to have access to those people to pull them away from the precipice of violence.
We've got just a couple of minutes left, but I want to address something that's been, you know, on Americans' minds for, well, ever since January 6th. There is this feeling that no matter how the election turns out, there's going to be trouble.
Yeah.
Do you agree with that?
Yes. The question is, what does that trouble look like on the ground? Does it look like people taking up weapons and attacking people? There have been internet memes that have been posted on right-wing websites that say people of the left will not be safe on the streets of America if Trump loses. And so that rhetoric is very real. And so there is a lot of work to be done. It's done in the halls of law enforcement, as well as in community-based groups. But we do know we have sort of one good measure, which is how people responded to the Oklahoma City bombing. That was done by a small extremist group that wanted to start a civil war. And the community overall, especially because children were killed in that attack, really came out and said, hey, we don't want this in America. We have a different vision of America. And so we're really appealing to those people to say, let's take a different path. Instead of going down this path that seems very intoxicating and righteous because you're saving something that you believe in, let's find a nonviolent way of achieving the thing that we all share in common, which is a stable society.
Before we go here, give people an idea of how to engage with you and your group and what you're trying to do.
Yeah, we have a great website that has a lot of resources. It's cure-pnw.org. We have a series of community events, including one coming up at Portland Community College on October 10th, a screening and discussion of a really good film called Join or Die, and just to be credible messengers within their own communities to help people move away from violence.
Thank you very much, Dr. Randall Blazak. We appreciate you being here.
My pleasure.